Today at Manchester Theatres, it is my absolute pleasure to be joined by the brilliant GWILYM Lee, who is currently starring as Gareth Southgate in James Graham's Olivier award-winning play, Dear England. Now, of course, we all know GWILYM from shows such as Midsummer Murders, Jamestown, The Great, SAS Rogue Heroes. In theatre, he has worked with the likes of the RSC, the Donmar, the National, in shows such as Hamlet, Oedipus, and King Lear. And of course, not forgetting the brilliant show of Brian May in the film Bohemian Rhapsody. Now, we can catch GWILYM at the Lowry in Dear England from the 29th of May right through to the 29th of June. So we've got a really good run at this. So thank you so much for joining me this morning, GWILYM. I'm excited because I love this play. so,
Right.
yeah, tell us about it because it kind of starts following Gareth Southgate's tenure as the England manager, but it is so much more than that, isn't it? It's not just about football. So tell us a little bit about what to expect.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, on the surface, it follows Gareth Southgate's tenure from being interim manager in 2018 to being a permanent manager, taking them through two World Cups and two European Cups until his resignation in 2024. And this is the first time that we see the play with an ending, because the play in its first iteration in 2023 ended just before the Germany Euros. So now, for the first time, this play has an ending. He never quite got there. Gareth Southgate and his team never quite got there to reach that second piece of silverware, and it's a shame for English
Yeah.
football, certainly. But I think for a play, it makes for a deeper kind of meaning in some ways, because it's about trying to find success without the kind of meaning and success without that silverware. What is it to win deep, or to learn how to lose, I suppose, becomes
Yes.
the theme of the play in some ways. But as you say, that on the surface, it's about that the team, the England football team, and Gareth's tenure. But actually, as you say, it's about so much more. It's about identity, it's about leadership, it's about overcoming your fears, it's about mental health, it's about so much more than just football, because partly because the world that existed at that time when Gareth was the manager, we were going through COVID for a long period. There was a period of quite kind of political chaos,
Yeah.
with leaders coming and going, with Brexit happening, and in that chaos, Gareth Southgate kind of stood up to the plate and kind of showed leadership that perhaps others weren't.
Yeah. And I thought I knew Gareth Southgate. I thought I had this image of who he was in my mind. And then I saw this play and it I have so much admiration for him as a person now. So what have you learned about him and who he is, and kind of what he not just brought to the team, but to the nation as well?
The more I get to know about him, the more I admire him. He's such an incredible character. I mean, obviously, the thing that we all probably know about Gareth and remember about Gareth is that really unfortunate penalty miss in 1996 at the Euros. And the play is kind of has that as a backdrop, as constantly we're constantly reminded of that moment throughout the play. And part of the play is about his personal redemption story to try and put that to rest. um but the fact of the matter is, the the very fact that he took the penalty in the first place is a great indicator of his character. He's an individual that never turns away from those leadership moments, those moments to stand up and be counted. And that's what led him to take the penalty. And it's after that moment where he was kind of publicly shamed, I suppose. Many other people may have kind of retired, or kind of hidden away, but he saw that as an opportunity to learn and to change, and he did, and he kind of it inspired him, and led him forward and led him to be the player that he was for a period of time, then to be the manager he was at Middlesbrough, and ultimately England under 21s and the England senior team then. So he uses adversity to kind of push him forward, I suppose, and encourages that in all of his players as well. fear and failure shouldn't define you, but should kind of motivate you and push you forward. Failure is an opportunity to learn.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It is, and he famously brought in a psychologist into the England camp as well.
Mhm.
And the detail of how you think of everything that is shown in the play, like all these things that as a nation we had no idea of, from the way he dressed to, the way the players would take penalties to what they called him. And that psychology is kind of what I found so, I mean, I am a football fan, but I found that side of it so interesting. The way that he talks about not letting someone else write your story for you. You've
Yeah.
got the opportunity to write your own story, and you're only just at the beginning of it, aren't you, really?
Yeah, it's about giving people ownership. It's
Yes.
about, allowing people to kind of take their own space and recognize who they are, and kind of live an authentic life true to themselves. So to do that, you need to know who you are, first of all. You can't live an authentic life without knowing who you are. So he's encouraging these young men to reconsider, for instance, the idea of what it is to be English, to think about national identity in a modern setting, in a modern kind of circumstance. And so yeah, and also to liberate themselves from this horrible burden of expectation that they had at that time. England, there's always this kind of tendency to this high expectation of English football, because of the history that we have, or the supposed history that we have, and this idea that we're the home of the game. In my idea, I think that's a bit of a nonsense in some
Yeah.
ways, and the idea that we're expected to win because we won one tournament in 1966 is also slightly absurd. So he's just trying to liberate people of that fear, really, and give them autonomy.
Yeah.
So all that stuff about um, sharing the canteen together, for instance. It was about, at the time, there was a hierarchy. Players ate first, and then all of the backroom staff ate separately, and people would kind of stick in the tribes of their teams. And he really tried to dismantle that. It's these small things, these incremental changes that change. That is when people talk about a culture shift, a
Yes.
change in the culture. It's those changes that amount to the culture shift. And as you said, Pippa Grange, the psychologist, was brought in to collaborate with Gareth to make those changes. And she is in some ways an outsider. She's a woman in a very kind of male masculine world. She spent a large part of her life in Australia, and so she's coming with outside eyes, looking at this institution of English football, and is able then to see what works and what doesn't, and what just doesn't make sense, that those from the inside might not be able to see. And they're really tough changes to make. I mean, one of the biggest ones is that idea of masculinity in a very male dominated world of performance and strength and speed and power, to then try and introduce conversations about feelings and about fear and weakness, or what we might term as, what some
Yeah.
term as weakness. I don't see it as weakness. I see it as a strength to be able to talk about those things openly. And she brought in those difficult changes with Gareth, and their changes, this it's still so prevalent today, isn't it? We're still kind of, mental health is a blight on our nation, and
Yeah.
suicide amongst young men is the biggest killer of
Yeah.
under 45s. It's an absolute disaster. And
Mm.
so to see a play about our heroes, these sporting heroes, where they're talking about feelings and they're talking about fear and they're talking about love. Love is a big theme in the play. And
Yes.
there's a moment at the end when Harry tells his team that he loves them. And I just think, from Gareth's point of view at that moment, it's like, God, we've achieved something here.
Yeah.
There's like grown men talking about their feelings towards each other. That's wonderful.
Yeah, it is. I was going to say there's so many touching moments in the play, and that was one that sprung to my mind. And it shows how you can connect, but also just have a giggle and still be yourself, and like, all right, let's carry on now, and like start dancing afterwards and things like that. So it's just gorgeous.
Hmm.
So have you met any of the team doing this, or have you not been able to, because it's not the first time this show's been out there?
No, I haven't met any of the team. Gareth has kind of been fully supportive of the play and has given
Yeah.
it his blessing. And he and James Graham, the writer, have been in conversation. But he's also a slightly introverted man, and I can imagine it'd be quite odd to
Yeah.
see a play about yourself. So
Yeah.
he's kind of kept a distance to a degree. And obviously, the first time the play was on, he was still England manager, so
Yeah.
he didn't want to have anything to do with it in terms of seeing it at that point. I'd love to meet him. I'd love to meet him,
Yeah.
just because I really admire the man, and I'd love to tell him how much I do admire him. Whether he'll come and see the play or not, I don't know. Obviously, the Lowry is a bit closer to his home in Harrogate
Yeah.
than London was, so maybe he'll come up to Manchester.
Maybe.
But the players, I don't know that the players have been to see it. Actually, I'm not sure. I know.
Ooh, okay.
I think Gary Lineker came to see it a few times and enjoyed it, and some kind of ex-players, retired players have
Yeah.
been as well.
Yeah,
But
that'd be weird.
yeah,
Imagine
yeah,
that'd be weird having them there. And
yeah.
what I want to say as well is that at no point is there any impersonation going on within the play. You know, your actors playing roles, but what you have managed to do is capture the essence of these people through such brilliant observations of the vocal deliveries, you know, the pitch, the pause, the intonation, all of these things that make these characters instantly recognizable to us, but without ever trying to impersonate them, because you're making them fully rounded people, aren't you?
Well, that's the hope. That is
Yeah.
absolutely the hope. Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, there's a certain amount of you try and study their physicality and their vocal quality, and you try and bring that to the stage. But ultimately, you've got to try and find what motivates them, what makes these people tick. So even if you are kind of embodying some physical representation, you're like, well, why does he
Yes.
stand in a certain way? Why does he gesture in a certain way? And why does he speak in a certain way? So it's always about kind of taking the outside qualities, but trying to fill in what's beneath all of that, I suppose. And make sure that at all times you're telling the story and that you're kind of acting the intention and trying to do something active in the scene with your scene partners.
So knowing what you now know, everything that you've learned, if you were put in the position, do you think that you would be willing and able to take a penalty shootout for
Oh
England?
my, oh my God, absolutely. I mean, probably. I'm going to say no, not least because I'm terrible at football. I'm kind of I'm a Welsh lad that grew up in Birmingham who played rugby. So football is not my. I'm
Not
used
your
to
thing.
over the posts, not underneath the post. So and also the ball is the wrong shape for me, so I'd be
Yeah.
absolutely shocking.
What about rugby
It would
then?
be a toe poke straight to the keeper, I imagine.
What about rugby then? Would you for England rugby?
I hate to say no, absolutely not. Wales rugby all the way, and it's not a great time to be a Welsh rugby
Well,
supporter.
yeah, not England, sorry, Wales. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's all a bit thingy, but the play is called Dear England, because of this open letter that he wrote to the nation, didn't he? And again, that's reflected in the play, and it's another of those moments where you're like, oh, because I'd forgotten about that. I'd remembered it when I saw it in the play, but I'd forgotten.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, it's just, and I think these are the things that mean that, because what I do want to get across is the message that you do not have to be a football fan to watch this
No,
show, do you? Because
not
it's
at all.
about,
No.
it's about people and humanity as well, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. And it's about so you're right. I mean, we talk quite a lot in rehearsals about there being three groups of people, A's, B's, and C's. And there are A's who are your football buffs who know who won the FA Cup in 1946 or whatever. And there's the B's, and then there's the C's who are those that know absolutely nothing about football. And within the company, within the cast, there are A's, B's, and C's. I'm probably a B, maybe, on a good day. And there are the same in the audience, A's, B's, and
Yeah,
C's. And the play has to appeal to all three at once, and does. And does.
yeah,
There'll be really enjoyable moments for the A's in the crowd when they get little details of players or characterizations or something like that, or little references to tournaments. But the C's will gain just as much, because it is about all of the themes that we've talked about already, but it's about like a communal spirit of coming together that football
yeah.
represents. And and that theatre represents. Theatre also has that ability to really forge people together, and you have this collective experience. And the play does that. It does provide those moments of joy and of collective pain as well. You go through it all. Like friends and family that have been sick say, God, I had no idea what to expect, but we've been through the ringer. There's been tears, and there's been laughter, and there's been joy, and there's been dancing. And it is just a really kind of magical moment of communal spirit, I think. And it is a joy. It is a joy to be able to do it on stage every night, and seeing how the audience kind of take it to heart, because it does tap into something really powerful. And part of that is because the way that Gareth managed to speak to the country, I think, with that letter. We quote some of that letter in the play, but when you go and read the letter as a whole, like, I really encourage everyone that goes to see the play to do so, because it's incredible. It's so powerful. And for him to have done it, he's an England football manager. There was no need for him to do that. But he recognized that the country was fractured, disparate, and that there was a need to try and kind of unify people and bring people together and galvanize people. And he did that. He really did. He really attempted to do that, and I think did it brilliantly. And this is an introverted man who is a football man. There's no need for him to have done that. But as he's always said, and as he's always done in his life, when there is a moment to stand up and be a leader, he will always take that opportunity, and he did with that letter. And I love him for it. It's brilliant.
I couldn't agree more, and I cannot wait until it comes to Lowry. We've not got long to go, so thank you so much for joining me today. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting about this play. I keep going to people like, and they're like, but
I've just got to say, Karen, how excited we are to come up to Manchester with this. This play has had a life before, but it's never left.
It hasn't.
It's never got outside the M25, let alone to the rest of the country. So to bring it up to Manchester, which is such a footballing city and such a brilliant cultural city, we are absolutely buzzing to bring it up there, and can't wait to kind of see those Lowry audiences and see how they respond to Rashford and to Sterling, who was playing for Man City at the time, and all these other players, and the story itself, and we can't wait to get it up there. So looking forward to seeing you all.
It's that you can literally see Old Trafford from Lowry, so it's
amazing.
It's just over the bridge, so you can literally see the football ground, one of them in Manchester anyway. So So thank you so much. And as we've said, it's there from the 29th of May right through to the 29th of June. So we've got a good stretch at the away play, and we will see you there. Thank you very much.
Great, nice chatting to you.
Dear England, I can't possibly hope to speak for an entire country, but I would like to share a few things with you as we begin this journey.
England needs a new story.
This feels like a different England. Fearless, having fun out there.
Come on, England! Come on!